I'd like to first introduce Tony Hughes. Tony is a 35-year veteran of the industry. He is #1 best-selling author. His blog is one of the top blogs globally in the world. I think he's #3 on LinkedIn in terms of all sales thought leadership around the world. He's also a good bloke, which helps as well. So quick round of applause for Tony Hughes. And then Bill Carson also, if I can invite Bill to come up. Bill is a 35-year industry professional, has worked with virtually all of the big sales training organizations in the world, so Miller Heiman, Huthwaite, Rain Group, has a really interesting philosophy around buyers and sellers co-creating value together when they're working on deals rather than it being all seller-led, and runs some great workshops in the area of bringing the whole salesperson to bear in the client engagement, not just one aspect of it. So I think between Tony, Bill, and Sue, there's going to be some interesting perspectives on this topic. Sue, I might let you come this side. I just wanted to quickly throw out a couple of insights that came through your talk today for me. I have a 5-year-old son, so what you articulated in terms of the innate selling skills of children, we see that every day in our house. I think the one sales skill you missed is negotiation. He's an ultimate negotiator. Oh, yeah. They will stick to their tack until they get what they want. So that was certainly something that stood out for me. I had a question. I might kick off with a question, then we'll open up to the floor. And it sort of goes back to one of the questions which was raised in the room. You know, we all get busy doing what we do. Where does the onus of responsibility lie in terms of that personal development piece, in terms of that curiosity piece and going out? Should we put the onus on our employers to help develop and educate us, or is that about us stepping up and taking responsibility and ownership ourselves?
What do you reckon I'm going to say? Yeah.
Or is there a role for both?
Okay. Organisations have a duty of care to be able to inform people about why it is we do what we do, how we do it, and with whom. Unfortunately, most salespeople are inducted like this. You know, hi Tony, welcome to our business. Lovely to have you here. It's fantastic. I'd like to meet Bill. He's awesome. He's the best salesperson we've got in the team. Can you just spend a week with him and be like him? Not helpful. Okay, so we have a duty of care as businesses to actually explain to Tony what we're about, what we're doing, etc. But also, too, one of the problems that I see with a lot of salespeople, and also the legacy of the training industry in sales, the sales excellence industry, is that they've basically been spoon-feeding everyone, and they just turn up to events and have a bit of stuff, and then they think they've changed it, which is completely rubbish, and it doesn't work, and it's just a waste of money. The ROI on this is very bad. So, I mean, you watch younger children, I look at my children as well, who are now 14 and 19, they are constantly self-educating. You know, when Josh was doing year 12, he was supplementing his information, what he was learning. We all know how to do that. It's just that somehow organisations have sort of become a bit, I don't know what the word is, controlling, if you like, about what you can. No. We need both. We need them working together, but we don't want any learnt helplessness. And that's unfortunately what a lot of companies have created, is learnt helplessness in their people who just wait to turn up to be trained, and then somehow they've changed. And anyway, as I said, suck brains unite out there, okay? We need to keep developing ourselves and really cultivating ourselves. It's a duty of care to yourself, if nothing else.
Great, thank you, Sue.
Yeah, I'd just add to what Sue's sharing there, in that one of the problems that I notice is that businesses tend to take the view with their salespeople and they fundamentally create rep brains. In other words, the logic is fill the rep up with product knowledge, point them in the direction of go sell. And what the business needs to be creating is strategic business brains. In other words, these are the high value add, all the people that Sue was referring to have the capability to have intelligent conversations, because all the rep stuff, that can be done on the website, or that can be done through inside sales. But the guys that get out, and the guys and girls that get out and actually have highly intelligent business conversations, they're the ones that add value.
My piece in all this is that if you regard yourself as a sales profession, as a professional being in a profession, then you have to stay current. The thing that horrifies me is so few salespeople read. The best thing you can do as a sales manager is introduce a program of a book a month. So every month there's a book that people buy, they read, and you talk about that book, what we can implement in sales meetings. So you make people accountable to read the book and key takeaways. It's the cheapest yet most effective form of sales training you'll ever do, because people engage their own imagination, they hear their own voice, and they do it in 12 hours of their own time rather than the company's. So get people reading a book a month as a sales manager and hold people to account.
Sales book club almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great idea. I might open up to the floor. So you're unlikely to have a more seasoned group of sales thought leaders in a room. So any questions, any observations from the group? Yep, John, could you get a mic?
Yeah, hi. I guess what I'm kind of interested in is the theme for today was adapt or die. And I think, that last comment there about, ensuring that organisations are helping their people adapt. Because I think a lot of what came through from you, Sue, is wonderful, but it's about you just have to be a great... everything about being a great salesperson hasn't necessarily changed over time. So I think that, it's kind of like get better or die. But I'm interested in the, how we adapt, more as well as just get better, in today's world. And I think that a lot of that is about how do you use, the changing shape of the organisation better? How do you use, as a field guy, how do you use inside sales better? How do you do all that kind of stuff to elevate yourself to be able to leverage the sort of more modern world we live in of available information and all that kind of stuff?
So Sue, I might let you respond first, and then Bill, come to you.
I think the challenge is around technology and also all of the distractions that we can have. So we've got to find ways to use the technology in such a way that it actually serves us, not us serving it. And a lot of organisations get caught up the wrong way around. So you've got to train people on how to use these sorts of things, how to actually develop their, their computer skills, basically. How to actually, I'm a bit adverse to actually having everyone have to write something. I mean, how much can we read? That just adds more crap to the world. Curating is an important skill. If you're going to share insights with your clients, then how do you curate the right information? So that's another skill that they need to learn and adapt to. Again, learning how to think about stuff, that's constant. You've got to keep practicing all of those sorts of things. And just being open-minded to actually what's happening and not being frightened to have a go. A lot of people are very risk-averse, and so they won't have a go. So how do you learn something if you don't have a go? So yeah, but again, I always warn people to be wary of point solutions, of the silver bullet promise, and read beneath the headline and integrate it and teach systems thinking. That's what I think we all need to learn, regardless of roles, is how to think about systems.
Thanks, Sue. Bill?
Yeah, I'll just add further to what Sue was suggesting there, and that is that the whole theme of adapting, particularly within the context of the sales world, is recognising the greater role that the human plays in the experience for the buyer. So the huge shift that's happening, as we all know, is that all of our buyers are self-educating. So they come. So we come into this interaction, and that there's so much knowledge that the buyer already has. Where in the past we used to be the font of that knowledge, they already have it. So what we then got to be doing is thinking about how we're adapting to the buyer's requirements, and so we actually add value to the buyer by helping them educate themselves. And then the role of the seller is then, I was talking with Trevor earlier, where as a medical specialist, he's holistically bringing a whole lot of solutions together, rather than a rep brain is, okay, this is all I do, this is my domain of focus, that's all I do. Yeah. So the whole adaptation piece is how do we add more value, how do we bring more to what our buyers' needs are? Yeah.
So I think Sue referenced that, Darwinian concept of it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the most adaptable. And I was lucky enough to go to Galapagos, and you see how each island has a very different environment, which drove different evolution in the finches. the environment that all of us are in is different. The whole ecosystem is changing, but each environment is different as well. And so I think we need to be cognizant of that, and that will help to inform the change or the adaptation that occurs.
Yep.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all model. It's recognize the environment, recognize what's happening with your customers and your ecosystem, and then allow that to inform the change or the evolution that occurs. Thank you for that. Any other question?
Can I maybe just add to that while we're waiting? So, Sue,
Sure.
I really loved your comment that where there's complexity, there's a reason for humans to actually be there. That's really true. And yet the irony is that everyone's high-value solutions over time drift toward commoditization, which makes it more difficult for them. So in my view, where sellers really need to adapt is all of us need to embrace technology or we'll be replaced by it. And the thing that amazes me is how few salespeople are good with basic technology. You look at the way that they fumble around inside their CRM. Most people have no idea how to properly use Sales Navigator and actually construct a Boolean search. They don't know how their own marketing automation, lead nurturing, drip marketing products work to keep prospects actually swimming around the boat. So sellers have to become great with technology. I'm horrified how many salespeople I phone their mobile number and I get that telco recording. Your message will be converted from speech to text.
Yeah.
And I've often said to salespeople, hey, you need to put a personal greeting on your voicemail. Oh, yeah, I can't seem to figure out how to do that. And I just think you deserve to be fired. Like, it's the most basic tool of trade and you say you don't know how to use it. So the big way that sellers need to adapt is I believe every seller needs to write or they're going to be dead, and they need to learn how to write for the AI that's going to go find them rather than people. But they need to learn how to really use technology well. It's the most important thing a seller can do today.
Yep. Question over here. Just 1 second, Tony or John. Can we get the mic over? Thank you.
Look, I guess it was just more on that technology piece and just sort of trying to get your perspectives of how you actually operationalise that adoption of technology through the sales team, because look, a lot of people are investing great money in technology, but it's just not being implemented well.
What I've found, at least anyway, is that they start the wrong way around because they think technology is the thing that's going to sort everything out, rather than coming back to what is the central, purpose of their business, what is the actual buying experience and the sales experience that actually serves that, then the implementation and all of that. So when you actually look at it from that perspective, then you look at technology as how it supports the various steps along the way, makes things quicker, easier, whatever, to access information. But like I said, the sales world has been filled with silver bullets where everyone's waving some shiny thing, and that's the biggest problem.
Tony, can I just jump in and then hand over to Tony? The other thing is we all talk about this concept of marketing automation or sales automation, and yet when we're on the receiving end of that, it's a pain in the ass. We've all had those emails where it's clear they've just replaced your name with someone else's name, and sometimes they don't quite get it right, and we respond to tenders, and we sometimes do that as well. We search and replace, and we miss one or two, and it's just so obvious. So I think, and Sue alluded to it very nicely, it's a movement towards a little bit of personalization, a little bit of individualization, customization, surprising and delighting customers, at least in the industry we're in, because we're not B2C for the most part, so we have a relatively small captive audience. Every opportunity to personalize. So yes, you can automate to some degree, but not to the degree that we lose that, because otherwise you're missing out on a great opportunity. Sorry, Tony.
And every organisation, every person needs to be clear about the purpose of any technology they want to work with. So often people think, gee, I need to embrace social, let's use Twitter. And they immediately go to this concept of blasting and spamming the world with tweets, whereas the real power is to leverage a timeless truth in selling, and that is that the fastest path to revenue and the highest probability of a sale is through monitoring for trigger events and then finding a warm introduction or referral. So Twitter is a great tool for social listening, social monitoring, which is the opposite way that we naturally tend to think about it. So we need to use technology to enable the timeless truths in selling, to increase our reach and improve the efficiency of what we're actually doing. And technology can really help us. I think where AI is all going to go is it's going to really disrupt first this inside sales SDR role for monitoring trigger events and starting to engage with people where people almost think it's a human, but then hand off to a real person at exactly the right time for that human interaction. Because human beings tend to be sloppy and lax in monitoring this huge amount of data that's out there and mining it for context that means they should now call somebody.
Great. Yes, question down the back.
So, Sue, one of the takeaways I took from your presentation was that we need to be more timely and take more time to do what we're doing instead of this sort of spraying scattergun approach. So how can we do that in a world where we're being increasingly told to sell quicker, faster, use technology, tweet on a daily basis and all that kind of stuff? So how do we address that dichotomy where we need to be more considered in our thinking and approach, but yet we're being pushed harder to do more and more quickly?
Yeah. It's a really interesting question because it's as if speed has become a virtue, and it's not. Okay, you know, I recite to myself every day, hasten slowly, you know. And we need to create that space to actually think and contemplate and reflect. And it is very difficult. So prioritization is a key to work out what works, what doesn't. And again, it's also coming back to that FOMO, you know, the fear of missing out, and everyone thinks I have to be everywhere. You don't. If you come back to strategy, strategy will tell you what you need to be doing and where these people are residing. And so we may not need to use Twitter, for example, or we might not need to use LinkedIn, but we want to go for these sorts of areas. So unless you stop and actually reflect on what it is you're trying to do, and then work out pathways to do it, then you'll just be caught up in the perpetual cycle of, you know, addiction to speed. Okay. The question was, how can you influence the organisation? Well, I made a little comment. You sweep the staircase from the top. So you need to become an incredibly good salesperson internally. You've got to be able to bring cases and arguments, not just an opinion. An opinion is just an opinion. An argument is a well thought through, factual case that you're going to bring. And if they can only think about how they can make more money, then your case better be ringing true about how they're going to make more money. Okay? So you have got to be able to take a business case that's compelling. Just as you would take that to a client, you need to be able to start doing that internally within organisations to start to get the shift happening. Unfortunately, most people don't change when there's a good opportunity. They only change when the Bunsen burner's on their ass and they're in crisis. So we've got to be able to start to actually help people start to see things. But that's why you've got to be adaptive, because if the Bunsen burner's coming out, that's your opportunity. Go in there. I don't care what it is, you know. So again, it depends on how open these people are to it. But you've got to position it in such a way that's going to be meaningful for them internally.
Just to pick up on Sue's point, one of the things I've noticed in a lot of organizations is there's a lot of fear and uncertainty in terms of social and a variety of other strategies. So we're doubling down on the old techniques in the hope that we can still, you know, squeeze out some leads or some opportunities. So to Sue's point, be the person to say, well, look, I'd be up for trying something different. Use me as a test case, and then you earn the right to actually have that behavior spread across the business. And all of a sudden, they realize that actually this is a much, much better, more sustainable, more customer-centric way of doing things. So you can actually put yourself up as the sort of the trial, and hopefully get some really good traction with it, and then start to change the culture from the inside.
There's one other thing to factor in as well, for whether it's with customers or internally, that we all get a bit fixated on features and benefits of what we offer and how wonderful it is. But here's the truth. There's Nobel Prize winning research in economics done by some psychologists several years ago. Risk is 3 times more powerful than the benefits. So our case must put in how we're going to de-risk this, or what are the consequences of not doing it. And that's where a lot of people get a bit frightened to talk about it. I love talking about that. It's about being able to come in with a proper case that is de-risking this, so they can see the consequences of not doing it or doing it, as well as the positives. But 3 times more powerful than the benefits, you know what you need to play up. We don't want to be doom and gloom, so it's got to be kind of this neutral kind of zone, but it must put a good business case. Don't scare people, we're already scared enough, but they have to look at decisions that they can make that they can relate to.
I think we've got time for about one more question, so we've got one more. Yeah, yes, here in the front. Thanks.
So my question is, how would you be able to train yourself to, I guess, get your points across? Just coming on like the different option that you can have, just about training yourself. Like, would you suggest Toastmasters, or maybe there's other channels that you can go to upskill your delivery in what you're selling?
In terms of like presenting publicly or presenting to people, is that what you're talking
about?
Yeah,
to selling to people, or if you're on a corporate level, I guess just having that public speaking. And
well, this may, look, I used to have terrible case of stage fright. I couldn't get up in front of groups to save my life. It was a terrible experience. So the only way I got over that was actually to do it. But I started small with sort of environments that I felt relatively safe talking about something that I knew. And then and I always talk about something I know. I don't kind of just stray from that. But I went out and out from that. It's practice. And this is the thing. If you want a quick fix kind of sort of bolt, just a bit of an injection, it doesn't work like that. So there is lots of good advice out there, good tools and skills to learn, but nothing kind of gets you to where you want to go if you're not stepping into it. So go out on a limb, have a go. Take the opportunity. And don't worry about making mistakes. These beautiful young lawyers last week, when I was asking them questions, they're kind of going really quiet. They go, excuse me. Don't worry about making mistakes. Have a go. Have a go. And even if you feel a bit foolish, which I have done many times in my life because I've had a go, I've learned from it. So I'm not frightened of making mistakes.
One of the things I'd say is, you noticed when Sue came up this morning and then subsequently Tony and Bill, I introduced them. And what I was doing there, apart from anything else, was setting some context and also explaining their experience. And what that does is it makes sure that their message lands more with the audience, because if the audience don't have the context and an understanding of who you are and why they should listen to you, then hopefully you've got a good message, but it's harder to do. If you take 30 seconds to just give them that context, then all of a sudden, everything you say after that will have more impact. So think about that, and also think about the context that you give before they ever meet you, because we all think we're super sneaky and we go and stalk people on LinkedIn. They do the same thing to us. So Sue talks about the value of curating information. We can also effectively curate our own brand online. So ask yourself, what will people find if they look for me before they meet me for the first time? And you can control those two things, and all of a sudden you're getting off to a running start.
Yeah, and further, it's really important to be thinking about who am I going to be meeting, and then therefore what might be the things that are really important to them. And then specifically picking up on Sue's point, always thinking in the context that, not in terms of what I sell, but what are the problems that get solved by what I sell. So that then you can enter into the conversation that's going on in their heads. Most of us, we live in the world of crap, there's just stuff happening all the time. And so the conversations that we want to enter into are those in which I'm dealing with difficulties, I've got these challenges, and then as we enter into those conversations, then we connect, and then we listen, hear their words, respond back, and then kind of guide the conversation.
Just one quick last one from me. Selling is like sex. It's great when it's all about the other person. So we need to be truly curious and all about them, and really be a reader in life. It's what builds that amazing baseline of reservoir that you can take to people. But just be all about the other person. It's not about presenting.
That's a pretty good soundbite to end on, Tony. Folks, can I ask you to put your hands together for Tony, for Bill, and especially for Sue Barrett?